Okay, in this video, I'm going to go over a Micro SaaS checklist, the best of my ability of what I've actually put together while I'm developing my Micro SaaS. So when I got my idea for Magnetify, I was thinking, so what is the checklist? What are the steps I need to take in order to make this happen? And I couldn't really find a checklist online. I've watched videos, I've read some articles, done as much research as I could, but I was trying to just really put something together because I'm one of those types of people that likes going step by step and having kind of like a roadmap. So this is all new for me, and I've put together a checklist to the best of my ability. And what I plan on doing with this is going through each phase as I'm going through it. So I've highlighted everything and blacked everything out as far as the actual steps themselves, but you can see like the major steps versus the subtopics, right? So what we're going to go through in today's video, we're actually going to go through the first one here. So I have 5 different ones, and this may seem short to people who have already created a Micro SaaS. If you see anything that I'm missing, please let me know. But today's video, I'm just going to work on the steps that I've completed so far, and it's this here in the planning section. So I'm hoping this video can help somebody else who is in the process of thinking about maybe developing a Micro SaaS or starting something for their own business or whatnot, right? So I'm going to go over this, and then, as it goes on, as I'm actually in that particular step itself, I will go over the rest of it. So right now I have done everything in the planning stage, and I'm going to go through everything here in the planning stage so you guys can see how this works. So by the time I get to step 5, this will all be revealed, okay? So number 1, I'm going to go ahead and take this highlight off. And number 1, so this is actually figuring out what you are going to do. So I've had an idea. I've wanted to create a Micro SaaS for a very long time. I have wanted to create something, but I've been sitting on trying to figure out what to do for probably about a good 6 months, I want to say. I've been praying to God. I've been, researching. I've been doing all kinds of things, trying to figure out what I should do, right? And how this would help my business, how this would potentially help others. So number 1 is actually finding that idea. So what problem is your Micro SaaS going to solve? So is it going to solve something specifically for you and also help others? I think that would be a good way of looking at it. Maybe you have this problem and you want it solved and you can't seem to find a solution, but you can create it, okay? So what problem is your Micro SaaS going to solve? And so I figured out that mine is going to solve the problem of creating lead magnets and making that easier for people to create lead magnets at scale at some point, right? So number 1, you've got to figure out what problem it's going to solve, okay? Okay, so let's move on to step number 2. All right, so step number 2 is going to actually be validating the idea. So is anybody else out there doing something similar? Because you don't want to necessarily be like a unicorn that's doing something completely brand new, no one's ever heard of, because you're going to have to sell that idea to people. Basically, if you see somebody else already doing something similar, then there is an audience for that. There are people who are willing to pay for that. So you need to validate that idea. And for my specific idea, it did take me a little bit of time to find competition and competitors that were doing something similar. But once I did find them, I realized that, okay, they're doing something similar, but mine actually has differences. And so that's another thing. So you don't want to be an exact copy of somebody else's software. You want to know that you can bring something else to the table. And so at first I couldn't really find many if any at all. And then I kept looking and I did find some. And I realized looking at their product that yes, my product will be different in different ways and will be creating different lead magnets and will be delivering that to somebody in a different way. So yes, there are differences there. So you want to make sure you're validating the idea. And I'm not saying if you can't find somebody doing the exact same thing that, maybe this is something you shouldn't pursue. I'm just saying find somebody that's doing something similar because it's going to be easier so you can find the audience that is going to be willing to pay for your software, okay? So validating the idea is number 2. Moving right along. So next you are going to decide what platform your micro SaaS is going to be developed on and who's going to develop it, right? So coming from a healthcare background, a non-tech background, I don't know much of anything as far as a no-code platform or even coding period, right? If I wanted to go that far. So I did research. I heard a lot about Bubble and heard how, easy it was to pick up and to learn and everything else. And I thought about it and I'm like, well, I have taken some time out in the recent months and learned to make and automations and things like that I can configure on the back end, but going to try to learn how to do Bubble on average could potentially take me anywhere between 3 and 6 months to actually learn that on my own and do this on my own. So I did not want to actually take that time to do and to work with this and try to figure this out on my own, basically. So I decided I wanted to do this on Bubble, and I decided instead of me actually trying to figure out this by myself and learn and, make mistakes and take it 10 times longer than what it should be, I decided to hire somebody. So I found a Bubble developer. I talked to them about my idea, gave them my vision, and I ended up hiring somebody that is actually working on the back end for me, okay? So this is going to be important. So are you going to actually take the time out to learn yourself, or if you're going to hire somebody out? So as a single mom, I don't have a lot of time, number 1. So, I am coding on the couch in between naps and her projects and her activities, bedtime. So my time is limited on top of if I have to go outside the home and do something. So your time may be limited if you are working full time or if you've got kids or whatever else it may be. So you have to keep that in mind. Do you have time to actually figure this stuff out? Do you have time to actually dedicate 3 to 6 months or whatever to actually build this out? If you do, that's great. You can save money that way. But then again, you are not saving time. So my thing is like I have more money than time at this point. So I decided to put that money in to have a developer actually build the software for me. Okay. So moving on, the next step here in the planning stage for me, what I did here, let's mess things up, but next step, right. Okay. So the next step was the pricing strategy. And this one is still being worked on, obviously because I have not launched, obviously because I haven't done the beta launch yet either, but the pricing strategy. So do you want to offer one-time lifetime deals, or do you want a monthly subscription, or do you want to potentially have a mix? And then are you going to be pricing your software for generalized consumers, or are you going to be pricing your software for bigger companies? So these are all factors that you need to take into consideration. And so the pricing is still something that's a little muddy for me right now. I think I have it mostly worked out, but I don't have the actual set numbers just yet. I will be doing something special for the beta testers, right? I will be doing people a favor when they join my wait list for Magnetify. They will be able to get beta testing pricing, right? So they will get a lower price versus when it's completely fully launched out to the public. So that is a benefit. If you want to join the Magnetify waitlist, then I would suggest you go ahead and do now. So that way you can get in on that locked in price, right? But what I have not figured out is the exact number, okay? And another thing is I've not figured out the exact number and how long I will keep it at that price. So I have figured that for my early adopters, I will be giving them a lifetime deal. I don't know how long that will last before I decide to switch it over to a subscription, okay? So these are all things that you're going to have to really think about. And this is one that I really struggled with. This is still probably going to be an issue in the future too. I think pricing is going to be a big thing because looking at competitors and looking at other people who don't have the same type of software and looking at their pricing structure, there's just so many different ways you can do it. It's easy to get confused and it's easy to, look at the shiny object syndrome, right? But you've got to think your pricing strategy, and that may actually boil down to what your monthly revenue goals are. If you're trying to hit like a monthly revenue goal, then yes, you're going to have to sell a certain amount of either lifetime deals or monthly subscriptions. But if you're doing subscriptions, you have to think about your drop off. So maybe the average subscription rate is maybe 3 months and then they decide, oh, I don't need this anymore, right? So you have to think about those different things when you are pricing your software. So this is going to be a difficult one here. I'm going to not actually check this because I'm still a little gray about it. So I'm not going to check this one off completely, okay? Next up is going to be designing that wireframe, okay? So I talked to my developer and he was asking me, okay, so you've given me the idea of the software you want, but what do you want it to look like? And I was like, well, I don't know. So designing a wireframe is not that difficult when you can use tools like Canva. So that's what I did. I actually used Canva. They have wireframe options that you can use, and Canva is very easy to use to design. And I set it up on Canva, and what I did is I started just taking ideas from different softwares, like different things that I ran across, different softwares that I actually use. Looking at some of my potential competitors. It's like, oh, I like that, or no, I don't like that. So I don't want to add that specific feature in my software, or I don't like the way the layout looks. I don't like the way the templates look. So I had to go through and look at a lot. And that actually took some time as well because I've never built a software. I've never developed a software. I know what things look like when I am a user of software and the interface and everything. But, looking at things, I'm like, well, how do I piece this together? So I had to take it step by step. And I had to think about, like, when someone is on the software page, when someone is on Magnetify, what is the first thing that they're going to see? So I had to actually start with copy. And so as we go through this checklist, there are going to be the main points here, but there's going to be a couple little sub points that aren't necessarily listed. So like right here with this design a wireframe of the UI, it's also including the copy. So I had to figure out the copy of my software and what I wanted my software to do and the features of my software. So this was easy to put together because I actually used AI to help me. I used Perplexity to actually come up with a lot of the ideation that I'm doing here in this planning stage. So I used it to actually help me with the copy of my app after I told it what I wanted it to do. Okay. After I told it, the different features that I was envisioning for Magnetify, I had it come up with a copy, right? So the copy is important for your user interface as well, because you're putting in blocks of, well, this is going here in the header section, and then you've got your like maybe feature section, frequently asked questions, then you have your pricing. So it's all laid out, and I have this design in Canva. Like I said, it was very easy. What I ended up doing when I was going to other people's software and checking things out, if I liked something, I would basically just take a screenshot of it. I would take a screenshot of whatever page I liked. I would put it into Canva, and I would arrange it to fit Magnetify. So that way I was like, okay, I don't like this, so I'm going to block out this section that I don't like. I'm going to erase this section, but I'm going to put in something else, but I do like this section over here. So that's how I pieced together this wireframe. So a good majority of the wireframe is done. So like the landing page is done, and the registration page when someone registers for the first time, and then when someone logs back in as a established user, that part is set up. But what I don't have completely together yet is the actual, when they get in, the actual editor. And the reason I don't have the editor is because that's probably going to be a little bit specific on what the developer can do. So I have most of my pages up until we get into the editor part. And then I have, after someone's edited and created their lead magnet, I have the share button and, the share page and how we actually share these lead magnets. So keep this in mind that even though you're not a developer, you're going to have to be doing things that, you're probably not used to doing, probably that you're not familiar with, but you can do something like this on Canva. So this can be, done fairly easily, but just remember, you're going to have to think about this. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do now is this last step here. And this is probably one of the most important steps. Is even though you don't have your software out, even though it's not launched, even though it's not actually built, you need to start building a waiting list. And you need to figure out how you're going to build a waiting list, because you don't want to, go from zero to, okay, this software is built, but no one knows about it. How am I going to get people interested in it? How am I going to get the word out? You want to start building a wait list in the planning stage. And this is what I found out. Building a wait list, the planning stage, because here in step 3 is where that beta launch is going to come into play, right? So maybe you can have your first 10, 50 users or whatever on that beta launch. And right now, my wait list is open. And there's a variety of different ways that I'm trying to market and get the word out about my wait list. And it's also going to come into play a little bit later on down in marketing. So when we get down to this section here, I think I'm going to make a completely different video, probably not necessarily using this format, but showing you exactly how I am marketing and actively marketing Magnetify, because I have a marketing plan set up already for that. Actually, this should actually probably be up here too, is actually develop a marketing strategy, right? Because you can't wait until everything is done here. You can't wait until, you're at your beta launch, right? You may not even have a beta launch if you don't actually develop a marketing strategy. So I think the marketing strategy actually needs to be up here in the planning stage. And I did do a marketing strategy, and that also plays into, like I said, the wait list. So my marketing strategy specifically for the wait list is, number 1, as you can see, I'm here on YouTube. I am building this in public. I am telling people about what I'm doing. I'm telling people what stage I am. And hopefully people will gain interest in what I'm doing, right? So that's part of my marketing strategy. That's part of my wait list strategy as well. As far as long-term marketing, obviously that's going to be, social media, things of that nature. But you have to figure out what your marketing strategy is going to be. You have to figure out where your users are. Okay, so depending on what type of software you're building, maybe your people are on Instagram. So maybe you need to do Reels. Maybe your people are on LinkedIn. You need to figure out where your people are. And what I've found with what I've come up with my specific Micro SaaS is that my people are on YouTube, number one, and number two, they're on LinkedIn. So I will be focusing on both LinkedIn and YouTube heavily for my marketing strategy, in addition to cold email and LinkedIn outreach for the businesses that I'll reach out to. Okay, so you've got to think about your marketing strategy and building that wait list. So that's what I've done so far. Right now, the developer is in phase 2. So that means that he has actually gotten my information here. And once again, like I said, the pricing strategy, because we did the whole layout. So I did the wireframe, but he redid the wireframe in Figma to make it look, legit and professional, that he can work off of to put it in Bubble. But I did tell him that my pricing is subject to change. These numbers are subject to change, so this is going to be up in the air. So right now we are in phase 2. So he is currently working on the back end, putting the actual design together on Bubble. And we're also going to be working on like the functionality. And I'm going to have to start giving him, things on the back end, templates, prompting, things like that, to get things done as far as the development stage. So once I've gone through this, I will release these steps on this checklist. So that way, by the time we're done, you're going to have the full checklist here as far as what you should do, or what you should consider if you are actually trying to start a Micro SaaS. So if you found this video helpful, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel. And lastly, if you want to be on the wait list for Magnetify, I'm dropping a link down below so you can sign up for the wait list, so you can be on the beta tester list, and you can get it at a pretty steep discount, okay? So in the meantime, if you have any questions or anything, leave me comments, and I'll see you guys on the next video.